or rather, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, Bhavanga. Bhavana and Bhavanga are both based on the root bhu, which means to be. Bhante is different, I think. No, I mean, seriously, I mean, grammatically. Okay, so let us see where we left off. Okay, so now we come to the fine material sphere. And this plane of existence is divided, firstly, according to the levels of the 4 jhanas, that is, the 4 jhanas of the sutta system. And then each of the jhanic planes is subdivided into a number of secondary realms. So we could see that the first jhana plane is divided going from the lower to the higher, the realm of Brahma's retinue, the realm of Brahma's ministers, and the realm of Mahabrahma, that's the great Brahmas. It seems that that this realm is organized according to the court of an Indian Raja, of an Indian state in that period. The king would have his retinue, those who always, like his courtiers, those who hang out in his court. Then the inner circle of advisors would be the king's ministers, and of course the chief is the king himself. Oh, that's another tea, okay. I think it's good, before we go through the planes, to go down to the guide to number 6. So the fine material plane is the realm of rebirth for those who have developed during their life one or another of the fine material jhanas, and at the time of death still possess that jhana in the sense that they still have potential access to it, that they haven't lost it because of negligence or because they've been overcome by obstructive states. Now, this doesn't mean that to be reborn in one of these fine material realms, that one has to actually be sitting in jhanic meditation at the time that one dies. But if a person has developed the jhana in their life and they regularly practice it, and they still haven't lost it at the time of their death, so that if they wanted to, when they were in good health, say, they could just by an act of will enter into the jhana, then what will happen in the death process is that the mind will just automatically go into the jhana consciousness, and from there take rebirth into one of the fine material realms that correspond to that jhana. We see this, the sutta basis for this is in the Anguttara Nikaya. It's the Book of Fours, Sutta number 123. Okay, so this plane is divided into 4 levels in accordance with the 4 jhanas of the sutta teaching. Okay, then going to the next paragraph, each of the 4 jhana planes is divided into 3 secondary realms, except that in the 4th jhana plane, the last realm is subdivided into 5 abodes, as we'll see. Then later we'll explain the principle according to which rebirth takes place into the jhana realms. Okay, so we've gone through the first jhana realm, which has the 3 levels. And it seems like this was a way in which the Buddha sort of accommodated his teaching to the Brahmins, because the aspiration for the Brahmins was always to be reborn in the Brahma world. And so the Buddha adopted the idea of the Brahma world, but has it subdivided into 3 secondary planes. And so one takes rebirth into one or another of these 3 secondary planes according to the strength of one's jhanic attainment. So if the jhanic attainment is mediocre, let's say, not so solid, then one will take rebirth into the lower realm mentioned here. If one has a middling degree of development of the jhana, then one takes rebirth into the 2nd realm. And if one has a strong development of the 1st jhana, then one takes rebirth into the 3rd, the realm of Mahabrahmas. So one gets to be the king of the Brahma world. Okay, then we have similarly 3 divisions in the 2nd jhana plane, the realm of minor luster, infinite luster, and the realm of radiant luster. The 3rd jhana plane is the realm of minor aura, the realm of infinite aura, the realm of steady aura. Refulgent. I think Venerable Nyanamoli had translated it, the realm of refulgent glory, which I like better than steady aura. Now the 4th jhanic plane is a little bit different from the earlier ones. Here we have 3 divisions. First we have the realm of great reward. Now according to the Abhidhamma system, all ordinary people who achieve the 4th jhana as in the normal way, who attain it in the normal way, will undergo rebirth in the realm of great reward. But now there are some meditators who develop the 4th jhana, and then they have a kind of aversion for consciousness. They believe or feel that conscious experience is a burden, a trouble, troublesome, an affliction, and their aspiration is to be without consciousness. And so then when they develop the 4th jhana, they direct that attainment in a particular way so that it leads to rebirth in this rather strange realm called the realm of non-percipient beings. These are beings that consist only of material bodies. They don't have any mind, any consciousness. But they take rebirth there, just, I don't know what they look like, a block of matter, or maybe they look like beautiful forms, I don't know. But they're not they have no perception, no feelings, no consciousness. And they remain there for a fixed amount of time. Then when the lifespan comes to an end, they pass away from that realm, and they link up with consciousness, catches up with them, and they take rebirth in some other realm with consciousness. So they think that being without any awareness, any consciousness, that is final liberation. That's why they aspire to be reborn there. And so when they pass away, of course, then they can't recognize I've been reborn in the realm of non-percipient beings, but just all perception, all awareness comes to an end. But then after so many aeons or great aeons, they pass away, and then consciousness re-arises according to some karma done in an earlier life. And so then they have to continue in the round of birth and death. Then the third the third division of the fourth jhanic plane are called the pure abodes. And this is a particular section of the fourth jhanic plane which is reserved for non-returners. That is, those who reach the third stage of enlightenment. Only those who reach the third stage of enlightenment can be reborn there. So it's a little bit like a community which is reserved for non-returners, like a sign in front, non-returners only. If you're not a non-returner, look elsewhere. How can you have what? Yeah, death occurs just in that the being passes away from that state of existing as a pure material body ends, and then the stream of consciousness links up with a material body in some other realm, and rebirth takes place. But let's leave the questions for later, till we get through this. Okay, so the pure abodes are realms which are reserved for non-returners, and then there are 5 levels in the pure abodes, as you'll see. The durable realm, the serene realm, the beautiful realm, the clear-sighted, and then the highest realm. Okay, so this takes us through the fine material plane. Then we come to the immaterial plane, which is pretty simple because there are just 4 levels here which correspond to the 4 immaterial meditative attainments. So those yogis or meditators who achieve the immaterial, the formless meditations, and have achieved some degree of agility in attaining them and pass away still in possession of them, will be reborn in one or another of these 4 formless realms. So this is the realm of infinite space, the realm of infinite consciousness, the realm of nothingness, the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. Okay, then we have a verse which is intended to describe which individuals are reborn in which realms. Okay, so it says, in the pure abodes, no worldlings, stream enterers, or once returners are found in any way. So the beings who are reborn in the pure abodes are exclusively the non-returners. But once a being is living in a pure abode, they can achieve arahatship there. And so they continue to live in the pure abodes as arahats. So the beings in the pure abodes are either non-returners, or those who achieve enlightenment there become arahats. And they remain there until they pass away. Okay, then noble ones are not found in the non-percipient realm and in the woeful planes. Noble ones, these are the disciples who achieve any of the 4 stages of enlightenment. And so, if one achieves any stage, even the stream enterer, there's no desire to be reborn in the realm of the non-percipient beings, because there's no possibility of any kind of spiritual progress there, because there's no mind. No mind, no progress. And then all of the noble ones are freed, permanently freed from the possibility of rebirth in the lower realms, the woeful planes. In all of the other planes, one finds both noble ones and ordinary people. Okay, maybe at this point I'll ask whether there's any questions. Okay. Larry, is that your name? Okay.
So I see some of these realms are kind of a way of incorporating, let's say, like folk deities and maybe shamanistic spirits and stuff like that. So those are kind of incorporated into Buddhism that way. Is that an accurate statement?
I'm saying that if if one takes sort of we might call a modern, like critical point of view, one could explain that these realms, that Buddhism has incorporated some of these other classes of deities into its teaching as a way of sort of incorporating popular folk beliefs or Brahminic ideas.
And
but it doesn't mean that I'm saying necessarily that these realms don't exist. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, but that's my question. And the second one's a quick one. Where did the Brahma Viharas fit into this?
Where do the Brahma Viharas fit in?
Yes.
Yeah, the Brahma Viharas occur at the level of the jhanas. So if one attains the Brahma Vihara and brings it up to a level corresponding to any of the jhanas, then one will be reborn according to the corresponding jhanic level of the Brahma Vihara. That one finds in Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Fours, I think it's Sutta 125. There is like a group of suttas which deal with the rebirth of beings who achieve the jhanas and the Brahma Viharas. Okay, Ed and Ying.
Thank you. Bhante, I noticed looking at the table here, table 5.1, that all of the lower realms are associated with an indefinite existence, but all of the higher ones, and they seem to be progressively increasing, are associated with a finite duration in that realm.
Yeah.
Any idea why that is?
No, except that it's based on probably it's based on statements that come in the suttas. But we're going to come to the lifespan as we move on. Yeah. Okay, so Ying.
Thank you, Bhante. I have 2 questions. One is on page 191. On the second line, I have a problem. I'm not sure whether it's language problem. I have a problem with the word creations.
Which line are you referring to?
The second one. Page 191.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Creations.
Yeah.
Do we believe in creations?
Well, it's not a God creating the world.
Over the creation of others.
We have to look at the explanation.
I didn't find.
Okay, this comes in the guide at the bottom of page 191. The gods in the Nimanarati heaven have the power to create objects of sensual enjoyment by thought in accordance with their desires. So if they want to enjoy something, they just have to think about it, and then that object will appear.
That's the
So that's
object.
what's meant.
Okay, not any beings. Okay.
Yeah, it's not creating other beings, no.
My second question is it possible that one has the ability to attain very high level of in the heaven, but for some reason he decides to stay in the lower realm? Is it possible?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would think that it's possible.
And then I have a question about the story. I don't remember that Brahmin's name, but he is one of the 5 Brahmins who was invited to see the prince, the baby prince Siddhartha.
Yeah.
And he is the oldest
Oh, right,
Brahmin.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he first smiled and
Yeah, I
then
know,
cried.
yeah.
Why he couldn't decide to
Yeah.
stay in the lower realm and come back to listen to
I
the
don't know.
Dhamma?
Yeah. It would seem to me that he should have been able to stay, but maybe it gives a dramatic element to the story. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Celine, Paul. Oh. Okay.
Bhante,
Yeah.
maybe this is a strange question, but it's I always thought, looking at the realms, that somehow they can, all of these can be part of the, or experienced by the human psyche and on some ways or another. It doesn't seem so different or foreign. So I'm not saying that you experience everything, but all these elements
Yeah.
are kind of mirroring certain aspect of human psyche, and I was wondering if you could say anything about it.
Yeah, one can't say that a human being can have experiences which are either foretastes of these other realms or which mirror aspects of these other realms, so that people can, in the human world, experience the affliction, misery of existence in hell. Others can experience states of ecstatic bliss which correspond to the heavens. Others who have intense craving that can never be satisfied, we could say, is an experience like that of the hungry ghosts. Yeah, so that is true, but one thing that I would say is that one shouldn't take the other realms just to be metaphors for for different aspects of human experience. But we could say that within human experience, we could find within human life, we could find different aspects of experience which almost anticipate or reflect the quality of life in these other realms. Okay, your name again was? Doug. Doug and Paul, right? Then we'll have to return to the text.
Thank you, Bhante. I have two questions. First, are the Buddha's teachings present in these other realms? I'm
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
And then my other question is kind of a follow-up to that. Is liberation possible in all the realms or certain realms? Or?
Okay, both of these are good questions. Yeah, sometimes people say that or think that the Buddha's teaching is available only in the human realm. What's actually said is that Buddhas arise only in the human realm. But when the Buddha gave his first discourse, if one looks at the full sutta, one sees that when the Buddha was speaking to the 5 monks, at the same time there were the deities from the different divine realms also listening to the teaching. And it said that many of those deities achieved different stages of realization. And so it would seem that the Buddha's teaching does exist within these other realms of existence. I would imagine that within these other realms of existence, the higher realms of existence, that there will be, the beings will have different religious or spiritual convictions, just like the beings in the human world. So, there would be like good, virtuous Christians who can be reborn in the heavenly world. And maybe this will be a heaven corresponding to the Buddha's, say, Tusita heaven. So they'll continue to follow Christianity, Christian beliefs there, while the Buddhists are following Buddha Dharma there. That's my imagination. But certainly, like within the Tavatingsa Deva world, it's said sometimes Saka, the king of the Devas, teaches the Dharma to his company of Devas. And in the Tusita world, Maitreya, the Bodhisattva Maitreya, is said to be existing. And he maybe is teaching Dharma there in the Tusita Deva world. Okay, then, is liberation possible from the other realms? It would be possible, I believe, from certainly it's possible from the pure abodes. I think in some of the Brahma worlds, also other Brahma worlds, there would be arahats. Do you remember whether there are any cases from the Tavatingsa world or Tusita world of beings achieving arhatship? Yeah, that I don't know. But I think some of the texts speak about Brahmas that achieve arhatship. Maybe in the sensual Deva worlds, there's too much sensual pleasure so that the mind doesn't go to beyond stream entry or once returning.
Bhante, with the immaterial planes, since those beings cannot hear or see, I can't see how a noble one would take birth in any of those realms, unless a stream enterer would, through their meditative jhanic attainments, that they maybe could end up there for one life. But I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Yeah, this is a good point. Now, what cannot be attained in the immaterial realms is the first stage of enlightenment, the path of stream entry. Because it said one of the conditions for attaining stream entry, one has to hear the Dharma. And now if a being doesn't have ears, the faculty of hearing, they don't have the opportunity to hear, to learn the Dhamma. And so a being who achieves rebirth into the fine material, into the immaterial plane without knowing the Dhamma has no opportunity to learn it there. But it's said that after a person has achieved at least stream entry, if they master the immaterial attainments, they can be reborn there. And then because they have the view of the Dharma, the view sufficient for insight, they can continue to develop insight there and then achieve Nibbana from one of the formless realms. Okay, I want to move on now. Some of you said to me during the break, wow, this chapter seems so easy. There's no distinction of different chittas here. Well, now you'll find out that you are overly optimistic. Okay, so this is the 4 types of rebirth linking. So first, they give the overview. So rebirth linking is 4-fold, and this corresponds to the planes. Rebirth linking in the woeful plane, the plane of misery. Rebirth linking in the fortunate, blissful plane. Rebirth linking in the fine material sphere, and rebirth linking in the immaterial sphere. Okay. Now in the case of the woeful plane, now the unwholesome resultant investigating consciousness accompanied by equanimity becomes the rebirth linking consciousness at the moment of descent into the woeful plane. You remember, in fact, you probably still have the table of the technical names, common names, and functions of chittas. And so you could see that the rootless, that the unwholesome resultant mind consciousness element associated with neutral feeling, that's the one close to the bottom of that column. This is what we call, conventionally we call this the investigating consciousness, but it also performs the functions of rebirth linking, bhavanga, and death. So that is the consciousness that functions as the rebirth linking for beings who take rebirth in the woeful plane. And so at the moment of rebirth into any of the woeful planes of existence, that particular consciousness arises as the rebirth consciousness, and then it's followed after the rebirth consciousness passes away. That same type of consciousness flows on as the bhavanga. And so it lapses into the life continuum, the bhavanga, and then it continues on, except when there is active consciousness, until it becomes the death consciousness, and then it stops. And so that's the one single mode of rebirth consciousness in the plane of misery, in the woeful realms. So in a way, it's fortunate, I would say, for those beings that their rebirth consciousness is still accompanied by neutral feeling, not by a painful feeling. The painful feeling is what comes from the outside. Okay, now comes rebirth linking in the sensuous, blissful, or fortunate plane. And so it says now that the wholesome resultant investigating consciousness accompanied by equanimity occurs as the rebirth linking, bhavanga, and death consciousness of deformed human beings of the sensuous, fortunate plane, such as those born blind, etc., as well as of some earth-bound deities and some fallen asuras. And then this etc. is elaborated in the guide for those born blind, etc. So it says the etc. here is intended to include those born deaf, mute, mentally retarded, mentally deranged, and also those born as eunuchs, hermaphrodites, and sexually indeterminate. And then the commentators explain that the expression born blind refers to one whose rebirth consciousness is produced by a karma that, owing to some deficiency of merit, is incapable of generating eyes with the capacity for vision. And so it could be the case that because of maybe an accident that happens to the mother or something in the process of embryonic or fetal development, that the person is born blind. In that case, it's not due to the rebirth consciousness, but just some accident has occurred. So that person could still have a higher type of rebirth consciousness. But this is the case where the actual lack of vision is already intrinsic to the rebirth consciousness. Something in it prevents the development of eyes with a capacity for sight. Similarly, with the ability to hear, to develop, to speak. I have a little question in my own mind about why they put eunuchs, hermaphrodites in that category. I wonder sometimes whether this is not a kind of ancient Indian prejudice that is sort of coming to expression here. Because I think that, I don't know eunuchs or hermaphrodites, but it could be that there are people who are hermaphrodites who could be very intelligent. Okay, then we come back into the main text. We have the 8 great resultants act as the rebirth linking life continuum and death consciousness everywhere in the sensuous, fortunate plane. And if you remember the 8 great resultants, let's see what page they are on. Page 48 and 49. You'll see that 4 of them are associated with knowledge, 4 of them are dissociated with knowledge. And those that are associated with knowledge are rebirth consciousnesses, rebirth chittas with 3 beautiful roots. That is, if the rebirth consciousness is associated with knowledge or wisdom, it means that they have the root of non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. If the rebirth citta is dissociated from knowledge, then they are born with just 2 beautiful roots, non-greed and non-hatred, but not non-delusion. And so from the Buddhist standpoint, it's very important for us to gain a rebirth consciousness with knowledge, with understanding, because it's the people who have the root of non-delusion that are capable of making more rapid spiritual progress, of achieving the higher states of consciousness, like the jhanas, the formless meditations, and particularly of developing wisdom, the wisdom of insight. If a person doesn't have the root of non-delusion, they could have the other 2 good roots of non-greed, non-hatred. So the person could be generous, kind, loving, gentle, have many virtuous qualities, but they lack that root necessary for comprehending the Dhamma. But if they do meritorious deeds, then they can be reborn in a subsequent existence with a 3-rooted rebirth consciousness and then comprehend the Dhamma. And so this is why it's important for us when we have the opportunity. I think like everybody, I would assume, who gets really interested in the Dhamma and is willing to study and practice the Dhamma has 3-rooted rebirth consciousness. So we want to preserve that root of non-delusion by being quite diligent in our study and practice and not just slipping into a complacent way of life, just enjoying our privileges as a human being and neglecting the spiritual development. Okay, so these 9 comprise the rebirth linking in the sensuous, blissful, or fortunate plane. And so putting these 9 together with the unwholesome resultant investigating consciousness, which is the rebirth consciousness in the plane of misery, then we get 10 modes that are reckoned as the sense sphere rebirth linking consciousness. And remember that these types of consciousness, after they fulfill their function of rebirth linking, go on to become the bhavanga for the beings in that life. Okay, then we come to sensuous plane lifespans. Okay, so the text says that there is no definite limit to the duration of life of beings in the 4 woeful planes or among humans or the fallen asuras. Okay, we could see this, clearly for ourselves amongst human beings. If you ever take a walk over and up to the 1,000 Lotus Terrace, where they have the boxes of the beings who have, people who have passed away, and they've been cremated, and the remains are kept there. I used to do this as a kind of meditation, to look at they have the name of the person whose remains are in the box, and then they have the date of birth and the date of death. And you see, some of them could be like 1901 to 1995. They lived 94 years. Another one you have like 1950 to 1975, lifespan of 25 years. Some 1998 to 2001, lifespan of 3 years. So there's nothing fixed. I once made photographs of the different boxes, and then I wrote a poem putting the lines of the poem under the boxes, and the poem was about the uncertainty of the human lifespan. But because I put this on, what is this called, Picasa? You know, it's one of these photograph programs on the internet, and I had it in the proper order, but it reshuffled all of the photographs, and it lost the order of the verses. One of these days I'll try to reconstitute it. Okay, so for human beings, we could see that there's great variety in their lifespan. I guess the same goes for the beings in the lower world. Certainly animals, you know, animals, even some dogs can live for 8 years, other dogs can live for 12 years. I've even seen dogs that are 18, 20 years old. And not to speak of the difference between the lifespan of a firefly, assuming it's a being that migrates, and an elephant or a whale. Okay, the lifespan, then there are fixed lifespans for the various gods. You can sort of read this on your own, but we find it all in the table 5.2. And this is based on a statement in the suttas where the Buddha speaks about the different classes of deities and the lifespan of those deities. And you could see that the successively higher Deva worlds have successively longer lifespans until we get to the sixth of these sense-sphere Deva worlds, Paranimitta Vasavati. Theirs comes to, I don't even know what to call that number, 9,216 million. Okay, now we come to the rebirth linking in the fine material sphere. Okay, and now it is the fine material sphere resultant consciousnesses that function as the rebirth, bhavanga, and death consciousness for the beings in the fine material sphere. And according to the level of jhanic attainment as a human being, that will determine which realm they will be reborn into, and that jhanic attainment, because it determines the realm into which they'll be reborn, the jhanic consciousness, the wholesome jhanic consciousness, is what generates the fine material sphere resultant consciousness, which becomes the rebirth linking, bhavanga, and death consciousness for the beings in that realm. And so you see on page 53, we have 5 types of jhanic resultant consciousness. And so those 5 types are the rebirth linking, bhavanga, and death consciousness for the beings in the fine material sphere. But there's a little sort of problem of correlation which had to be dealt with, because we have 4 basic levels of rebirth in the fine material sphere, but 5 types of jhana consciousness. So the text says, the first jhana resultant occurs in the first jhana plane as rebirth linking, life continuum, and death. The second jhana resultant and the third jhana resultant occur in the second jhana plane. So this brings 2 together for the second jhana plane. The fourth jhana resultant brings rebirth into the third jhana plane, and the fifth jhana resultant brings rebirth in the fourth jhana plane. But for the non-percipient beings, material form itself occurs as rebirth linking. This isn't rebirth linking consciousness, because this isn't the consciousness, but the first moment of their life is just a moment existing as bare material form, no mind, no awareness, no consciousness at all. And then similarly, thereafter, during the course of existence and at the moment of death, only material form exists and perishes. So I'm thinking maybe if I were to drop this cup and it were to break, a living being would would manifest out of thin air and say, "Thank you for liberating me from the from the realm of non-percipient beings." Okay, so these are called the 6 modes of rebirth linking in the fine material sphere. And then we have fixed lifespans in the fine material sphere. I think it's easier to take them in if we go to the table on page 186. And there seems to be a strange anomaly here, which the commentaries give an explanation of it. I have to say I don't find it completely convincing, but this is what they say. You see, the lifespan in the first jhana plane for Brahma's retinue, Brahma's ministers, Mahabrahma, is given by way of what is called an incalculable aeon, a asankhya kappa. Now, a great aeon includes 4 asankhya aeons. And so the asankhya aeon is 1/4 of a great aeon. And so the Brahma's retinue, Brahma's ministers, Mahabrahma are given respectively as 1/3, 1/2, and 1 asankhya, or incalculable aeon. But then when we get to the other jhanic planes, the measurements or lifespans are given in terms of the great aeons, which are much longer. It doesn't seem logical to go from 1/3 of an asankhya to 1/2 to 1 of an asankhya, and then jump up to 2. it would seem that they should all be calculated in terms of the same standard. But if you read the notes, there's some explanation why that's the case. I'm not going to defend it with tooth and claw. It's just what's said. Anyway, you'll see how the different jhana realms increase in duration till we get to the highest gods of the pure abodes who have a lifespan of 16,000 great aeons. And what is the length of an aeon? The great aeon. There's a sutta where a monk comes to the Buddha and says, what is the length of the great aeon? And then the Buddha says, think of a mountain which is 1 yojana high. A yojana is about 6 miles. 6 miles high, 6 miles in diameter, made out of solid rock. And then a man comes by with a piece of Benares cloth. It's a very fine cloth, once every 100 years, and just brushes against that mountain with the cloth. So if the man were to do this continuously, the Buddha says, the man would wear away that granite mountain sooner than the great aeon will come to an end. So I think of the great aeon as a period of, the modern cosmologists speak about the Big Bang. So they say that we are now 13 billion years past the Big Bang. And just suppose, hypothetically, we're halfway through the expansion of the universe after the Big Bang. So that's 13, for convenience, let's make it 15 billion. 2 billion one way or another doesn't make much difference, right? Okay, so 15 billion, we're halfway there, so 30 billion to fully expand. Let's say hypothetically, I don't know if this will actually happen, but the universe is to contract again. So that's another 30 billion, so that's 60 billion years. So that's one great aeon. 30 billion of years of expansion, 30 billion years of contraction. And now this is 16,000 great aeons. And if you look up at the night sky, now we can't actually really see the sky anymore. At night, when I was a child, we used to go up to this, further north to the Catskills. I remember with my parents, we would go out at night and we'd look at the sky and it would just be all illuminated with, we would see like millions and millions of stars. Now, I don't think you can do that. You can? In which part? Where? Vermont. Yeah. Yeah, light pollution.
There's just no dark skies.
Yeah. But she says in Vermont you could see this. In Canada, can you see? You can still see in Canada. I guess if you go to the far north of Canada or out into the wilderness, you could see it. You saw it from the Grand Canyon. Yeah, when it's pitch black, yeah. Okay. So so this is the lifespans in the fine material sphere. Now we come to rebirth linking in the immaterial sphere. And now we have the 4 immaterial sphere resultant chittas. And those 4 immaterial sphere resultant chittas become the rebirth linking consciousness for their respective realm of existence. So if the meditator is one who achieves the base of infinite space and doesn't go higher, then when they pass away, then they'll take rebirth in the realm of infinite space with the realm of infinite space resultant consciousness as their rebirth, bhavanga, and death consciousness. and similarly with the other three realms of existence. Okay, then comes the lifespan in the immaterial sphere. So here, the lifespan of the gods who have attained to the realm of infinite space is 20,000 aeons. Those who have attained to the realm of infinite consciousness is 40,000 aeons. And of those who have attained to the realm of nothingness is 60,000 aeons. And then one would expect that those who have attained to the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, one would expect that they get the lifespan of 80,000 aeons, but I guess they earn interest on their meditative attainment. So they get an extra bonus of 4,000 aeons. So they get 84,000 aeons. It seems that 84 is some kind of mystical number in Indian thought. So maybe for this reason that they weren't content to confine the lifespan to 80,000 years, so they want 80,000 aeons, so they boosted it up to 84,000. Okay, then just taking the summary verse, the rebirth linking consciousness, the life continuum of Bhavanga, and the death consciousness in one particular birth are similar and have an identical object. Okay, at this point I'll pause and we have about 10 minutes for questions. Okay, Stephen has his hand up first.
Thank you, Bhante. I have a question about page 194, section 11. I was confused by this also when we covered this material.
Wait, let me get it. Okay.
Because it was also in chapter 3, this in a different sort of enumeration. Maybe I'm missing it. I don't understand why a wholesome resultant and equanimity results in these terrible defects.
Let me just see something. Yeah, I'm not sure that this rebirth consciousness necessarily results in those defects. What it seems to be saying is that when there are beings who are reborn with these defects, and that defect is a result of their rebirth consciousness, then the rebirth consciousness is this wholesome resultant investigating consciousness accompanied by equanimity. But I think the wholesome resultant investigating consciousness with equanimity could also be the rebirth consciousness of beings who don't have these defects, but just have, we call them a low state of personal qualities. And now the reason seems to be that this consciousness is a rootless consciousness. It doesn't have any of the good or beautiful roots. Now, all human rebirth, according to the Abhidhammic teaching, also according to the Sutta teaching, is the result of a wholesome karma. So to be reborn as a human being is necessarily the result of wholesome karma. But there are different gradations of wholesome karma, from weak wholesome karma to strong and superior wholesome karma, sense sphere karma. And so those beings who have the weakest wholesome sense sphere karma, will be reborn with the weakest type of rebirth consciousness possible in the human realm, and this is the weakest type. And so what they seem to be saying is that those beings who have these congenital defects, the defects that are already inherent from the moment, potentially from the moment of conception, that is because the rebirth consciousness is one without strong, beautiful roots. Whereas those who have the beautiful roots, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, will have naturally be reborn with healthier bodies. Did somebody else have? I think Matt in the back.
Thank you, Bhante. Does this mean that if your rebirth thinking consciousness is not it doesn't have 3 roots, say it has only 2 roots, that you're limited in how far you can go in terms of experiencing the fine material planes or the jhanas?
That is the point. I'll just repeat that. So he's asking whether if one's rebirth consciousness doesn't have 3 roots, does that impose sort of necessary limits to the extent that one can go in one's practice? And the answer is yes, that if one has the 2 roots, it said that one can't achieve the jhanas or the formless attainments, and one can't achieve the supramundane paths and fruits. But still, even if one has 2 roots, one could still practice. One could still practice meditation to the best of one's ability. And that will be creating a strong, one could practice meditation, one could study the Dharma, try to learn the Dhamma to the best of one's ability, and that will be creating the potential for a 3-rooted, wholesome, a 3-rooted, beautiful rebirth consciousness in the next life. So that's why we encourage everybody to do the best that they can, because if one does the best one can, then one gets the benefits in the future. If one has a good starting point, but one doesn't take advantage of it, then one will deteriorate. Any further questions? Okay, Yong has a question, then we'll break for lunch.
So it seems to me by reading all these different rebirth and linking and death consciousness, it seems like the immaterial jhanas, it seems like it's more desirable to attain the first four jhanas. So is that correct? Is that impression?
That really seems to me to be the case. It's a little bit paradoxical, as with this example, somebody brought up the example of, the story about the birth of the Buddha, where this rishi, this ascetic named Asita, came to see the newborn baby, and then he sees that the baby has all of the characteristics of a Buddha, and so he predicts that this baby who's born is going to become an enlightened one who's going to reveal the teaching of liberation to the world. Then he starts crying, and then the Buddha's father is upset and worried, and he thinks, why is he crying? Does it mean that some misfortune is going to befall this baby?
Right.
So he asks Asita, why are you crying? Then Asita says, I'm happy to know that this baby is going to become a Buddha, but I am destined to be reborn in the formless realm. So I can't listen to the teachings. I won't be, because Asita is an old man, and he's bound to pass away in a short time. So he says, by the time this baby becomes the Buddha, I'll already be gone, and I'll be reborn in the formless realm, so I won't get to listen to his teaching. But it seems to me, as I said in response to the other question, that if somebody has achieved both the fine material and the immaterial jhanas, that through an act of will, they could determine, I won't be reborn in the formless realm, or even I won't be reborn in the fine material realm, but through the power of the mind, of mental determination, I'll come back into the human realm.
So is it true that the Buddha passed away in the 4th jhana? It's after Parinirvana, is that?
Yeah, this is what's recorded in this Mahaparinibbana Sutta. But the Buddha, after the 4th jhana, he didn't achieve rebirth in any realm.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
So, because I guess we all, being a meditation student, we're all trying to achieve all the jhanas and the highest jhanas. It seems by going deeper into the practice, it seems like the immaterial jhana seems immaterial somehow.
Yeah, it would seem though,
in this context.
Yeah, this is
I
my conjecture that if one has like the right understanding, the right view, particularly of insight, one could achieve the immaterial jhanas, and by doing insight into those jhanas, one understands that those immaterial jhanas, first, that they're marked by impermanence, that they're unsatisfactory, and so on. And then that will strengthen one's resolve not to take rebirth in that realm. Otherwise, I can't understand why one does find suttas in which the Buddha praises monks who achieve the formless meditations.
Right, yeah,
and sometimes like he encourages them to go on beyond the jhanas to achieve the formless meditations. So if they're destined to take rebirth there, then it seems like the Buddha is sort of leading them into a blind alley.
But also it seems like once you achieve all the jhanas, you have the power to, the whole practice is be able to go and with your own conscious and power mind training, go into any stages you want.
It would seem so.
So it seems like the whole training is based upon that. So it seems like, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm experiencing an ear door consciousness process, which I'm interpreting through my mind door process, through the sequence of sound recognition, name recognition, connecting to sensations in the body, which are telling, maybe I'm wrong in my inference, but I'm inferring that lunch is ready. So if you have questions, please hold them. We could discuss them later. Okay, so let us end with, do we usually end in the morning session with 3 bows? I don't remember.